Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep on something I think we can all relate to: daily routines.
It's a great topic.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. And we've got some really interesting sources lined up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, linguistics articles, some cross-cultural studies, even a few personal anecdotes about how we talk about our day, in English.
Nice.
So if you're learning the language, this will be great for you.
Absolutely.
But even if you just, want a fun little refresher on the quirks of daily life, this one's for you too.
For sure.
I've actually been trying to learn Italian lately.
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you, even describing what I eat for breakfast, it just feels like this impossible task.
It's hard. It's really interesting, though, how those simple routines
Yeah.
can actually reveal these, deeper cultural patterns.
Oh, interesting.
Did you know that the concept of breakfast itself
Yeah.
isn't even universal?
Really?
Yeah, some cultures have multiple smaller meals throughout the morning rather than one big one.
That's fascinating. Okay, so let's start with our own kind of morning rituals, as one of the sources calls them.
Okay.
We all wake up, obviously, but have you ever noticed how
Yeah,
the way we talk about those first few moments can be so different?
it is, yeah.
Some people are all about stretching, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Others, they're like chugging water first thing.
Right.
And some people, I don't know how they do it, but they just jump right into the shower.
I know. Crazy.
What about you, listener? Any non-negotiable morning moves?
I think a lot of people have those.
Yeah.
And those verbs we use, right?
Mhm.
In the morning, they're just crucial for building sentences.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Get out of bed,
Yeah.
brush teeth, wash face.
Yeah.
Those are the building blocks for describing all our actions.
The essentials.
Exactly.
Okay, so after we've tackled the essentials, there's the whole getting ready part of the morning.
Yeah,
One source actually pointed out that in English, we use get ready for everything.
it's true.
Like from just a casual hangout with friends to like a black tie event.
I know, right?
But then I was thinking, if we're talking about like meticulously preparing for something really important,
Yeah.
we might use prepare instead.
Right.
It's subtle, but it can really
It does.
up your language game a little bit.
Totally. And I think if you connect that to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
those clothing choices we make
Yeah.
often signal what kind of day we're about to have.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. Think about it. Formal wear for a business meeting
Yeah.
versus casual wear if you're just, going out with friends.
Yeah.
Each outfit kind of tells a story, even before we say anything.
That's so true. It's like our clothes are a form of nonverbal communication.
Absolutely.
So then there's breakfast.
Yes.
Now, I gotta admit, I'm totally a creature of habit when it comes to breakfast.
What do you usually have?
It's toast and peanut butter every single day.
Every day.
But in doing research for this episode, our sources actually dive into how breakfast varies so much across cultures.
Oh, for sure.
Some cultures, they favor like savory options,
Ah,
like rice and beans, which sounds pretty good to me.
that does sound good.
And others lean more towards like the sweet treats,
Yeah.
pastries and things like that.
It's so interesting, too, how those breakfast preferences
Yeah.
are often tied to, cultural values.
Oh, okay.
And even geography.
Huh.
Like, for instance, in colder climates,
Yeah.
you're more likely to find those really hearty breakfasts
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
to fuel you up for
Yeah.
the day ahead.
To stay warm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas in warmer regions, they might prefer something a bit lighter.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so fueled up and ready to go, we're shifting gears to the daytime routine.
Oh,
Now, I'm curious, listener, do you, go to work?
Mhm.
Do you head to the office? Or maybe you commute to a totally different kind of workplace? Our sources really highlight how the language can shift
right.
depending on what you do and even your attitude about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's so fascinating is how the vocabulary we use
Yeah.
changes, to encompass all those different work styles.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've gone from punching the clock,
Right.
which nobody really does anymore,
No.
to logging in,
Yeah.
which shows, that shift to more flexible and tech-driven
Mhm.
work environments.
Oh, it's amazing how the language just keeps up with the times.
It does.
And whether we're in a traditional office or working remotely,
Yep.
one thing's for sure. We're all about those verbs.
Uh-huh.
Attend meetings, complete assignments, make calls, send messages.
Right.
Our language reflects that busyness
Yeah.
of the workday.
Yeah.
But even the most dedicated worker
Totally.
needs a break.
Of course.
Right.
Right. And those breaks, they're often built right into our vocabulary.
Oh,
We
interesting.
take coffee breaks, lunch
Yeah.
breaks, little pauses
Yeah.
that are just crucial for recharging, connecting with colleagues.
Oh, for sure.
It's almost like they're woven into like the fabric of our workday.
Totally. Speaking of lunch,
Yes.
it's funny how in English we use lunch
Uh-huh.
for both the meal itself
Yep.
and the act of eating it. You
Yeah.
can have lunch
Yeah.
or go to lunch.
It's true. So weird.
It's one of those quirks that just makes me smile.
It is. It is. It's a great example of how, English can be both flexible and a
Yes.
bit quirky at times.
Yeah.
And speaking of quirks,
Uh-huh.
I've always found it so interesting how different cultures approach, that work-life balance.
Oh, yeah?
Like some prioritize long work hours,
Right.
while others value, shorter work days and more leisure time.
Ooh, that's a great segue into
Yeah.
our next segment, evening routines.
Okay.
Because how we unwind after work says so much about our culture and our priorities. But first, listener, be honest. What's your least favorite work task?
Ooh, good question.
Mine's definitely filing paperwork. It's just like a black hole of productivity.
I could see that.
All right, so workday done, tasks tackled.
Hmm.
Now it's evening time.
Yeah, it's time to unwind.
That glorious stretch where we finally recharge.
Absolutely.
And our sources suggest that these evening routines,
Yeah.
they can be wildly different
Oh, for sure.
based on cultural norms,
Uh-huh.
personal preferences, even age. I mean, think about it. My evening looks a lot different now
Yeah.
than it did when I was a kid.
That's true. That's true. What I think is fascinating is how those evening routines often reflect the culture's values
Yeah.
and priorities.
That's a good point.
Like in some cultures,
Yeah.
evenings are all about family time,
Yeah.
big meals,
Uh-huh.
multiple generations,
Why?
shared activities, while in other cultures, there's a bigger emphasis on individual pursuits.
Interesting.
So things like hobbies,
Oh.
personal development.
Yeah, and speaking of hobbies,
Yes?
our sources mentioned a whole bunch of different evening activities,
Oh.
from hitting the gym, taking walks,
Yeah.
to like more creative stuff like painting or playing music.
I love that.
Me too.
Yeah?
I've always been fascinated by languages.
Oh, cool.
So I try to squeeze in some language learning apps, before bed.
Nice.
It's like a mental workout.
It is.
Yeah. What about you, listener?
Yeah, good question.
Any evening hobbies that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, it's wonderful how evening routines provide that space
Ah,
for both like physical and mental rejuvenation.
totally.
And of course, food plays a central role.
Of course, always.
Dinner time is often like a real social event,
Yeah.
a chance to, connect with loved ones,
Yeah.
share stories from the day.
Yeah, and the language around dinner, it's
Yeah.
just so rich.
Oh, it is.
We talk about setting the table,
Mm.
serving dishes, passing the salt, enjoying the meal, clearing
Yeah.
the plates.
Yeah.
It's a whole vocabulary in itself.
It is. It is. And those dishes themselves, right? They tell stories about cultural heritage,
Mm-hmm.
culinary traditions.
Yeah, one source I was reading actually went into how meal times themselves can even be structured differently.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, some cultures have like a really formal sit-down dinner,
Right.
while others are much more casual.
Yeah, more of a grazing approach.
Yeah, one thing that struck me while reading through these sources was how the concept of family time,
Huh.
it differs so much across cultures.
It does. It does.
In some cultures, it's totally normal to have extended family living all together,
Yeah.
while in others, it's much more common to have, just the nuclear family.
Right.
And this impacts everything.
It does.
From meal times to, evening activities. It really makes you realize how much our language and our routines are shaped by
For sure.
those social structures we live in.
Absolutely. And as the evening kind of progresses, our language shifts again
Mm-hmm.
to reflect that relaxation and leisure.
Okay.
So we might talk about, watching a movie,
Yeah.
reading a book, catching up with friends,
Right.
or just, unwinding after a long day.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where things get really interesting. Our sources really highlighted how technology
Yes.
has blurred those lines between work and leisure.
It's so true.
I mean, we might be checking emails or scrolling through social media late into the evening.
Yeah.
Even when we're trying to unplug and de-stress.
It's hard to disconnect.
It really is. It's like this constant plugged-in feeling.
It is. It's a fascinating paradox of modern life, really. And it brings up an important question.
What's that?
How do we create boundaries,
Yeah.
and protect that personal time
Yeah.
in this world that just feels like it's always on?
Yeah, that's a good question for our listeners to think about.
It is.
So we're moving into those later hours now. Our language reflects that shift
Mhm.
towards getting ready for bed.
Right.
We're brushing our teeth,
Ah,
washing our face, putting on pajamas, getting ready for bed.
right.
It's like all these little actions
Yeah.
that signal this transition, from the busyness of the day
Hmm.
to that quiet of the night.
Yeah, the verbs here, they become softer, gentler,
Mm.
reflecting that slowing down of our
Hmm.
minds and bodies.
Mm.
Dim the lights, fluff the pillows, slip under the covers. It's
Yeah.
almost like our language is lulling us to sleep.
Eh, And there's something so comforting about those rituals.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember when I was a kid, my grandma used to read me stories every night before bed.
Wow.
It was the perfect way to wind down and just drift off.
I love that. What about you, listener?
Yeah.
Any cherished bedtime memories or, maybe a go-to routine that helps you get a good night's rest?
Yeah.
Those bedtime routines, they can become so powerful, especially for children.
Huh?
They create that sense of predictability
Right.
and safety.
Yeah.
Like it's a signal that it's time to let go of the worries
Yeah.
and just embrace sleep.
So true. And then finally, we drift off to sleep.
Yes.
And our vocabulary, it shrinks to a whisper.
Yeah.
Talking about dreams, slumber, rest,
Right.
and of course, that all-important word, sleep.
Yes.
And with that, we've come full circle
We have.
in our journey through the day.
It's amazing how much vocabulary we've encountered just by exploring, that simple act of living,
Uh-huh.
from waking up to winding down.
Yeah.
Language is a part of it all.
It really is. And it's not just about the individual words, but how they come together
Yeah.
to paint that picture of our lives,
Yeah.
our cultures, and
Mhm.
our shared human experience. We've uncovered some really fascinating stuff, I think,
Oh, for sure.
about how language reflects and shapes these daily routines.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
I think it's time for a little vocabulary recap.
Okay.
After all, what good is a deep dive
Yeah.
if we don't come up for air with some valuable treasures? All right, listener, let's take that little stroll down memory lane
Okay.
and revisit some of the key vocabulary
Yeah.
from our exploration of daily routines.
Like it.
So from those first moments
Yeah.
of waking up, getting out of bed,
All right.
to those essential verbs like brush, wash, and get dressed,
Yeah.
our morning routines, they're just packed with those action words that really set the stage for the day.
It's true. And then as we move into the daytime,
Yeah.
our language shifts
Right.
to reflect,
Yeah.
work and productivity.
Exactly.
We commute,
Yeah.
we attend meetings, complete tasks,
Right.
and maybe squeeze in a coffee break
For sure.
or lunch break.
Oh, yeah. Gotta have those. But it's not all work and no play.
No, of course not.
Our evening routines
Yes.
bring a whole new set of vocabulary to the table.
What's
They
it called?
do. We unwind, we relax, pursue hobbies,
Uh-huh.
spend time with loved ones.
Yeah.
Maybe even indulge in a few guilty pleasures before bed.
Oh, yeah. Always.
Ought to have those.
Absolutely. And then as we prepare for sleep,
Well, yeah.
our language, it gets softer,
Yeah.
more reflective.
Yeah.
Dim the lights, fluff the pillows, slip under the covers,
Uh,
and finally,
yeah.
we surrender to sleep.
It's so interesting how those simple words
It is.
just evoke such a sense of peace
Yeah.
and tranquility.
Totally. And what's even more amazing,
Yeah.
how these words, when they're all strung together,
Yeah.
create this tapestry
Uh-huh.
of our lives,
Yeah.
our cultures,
Yeah.
and that shared human experience.
I love that. We've journeyed through a typical day,
We had.
from sunrise to sunset, uncovering all those linguistic nuances. So many.
That really shape our perceptions and experiences.
It's true. We've explored how language adapts to different work styles,
Yeah.
how cultural values influence our leisure activities, and even how, technology has blurred the lines
Oh, yeah.
between work and personal time.
It's everywhere. But most importantly,
Yeah.
we've encouraged you, the listener,
Right?
to take a closer look
Yeah.
at your own daily routine,
Yeah.
to think about the words you use
Right.
to describe your day, the rituals that bring you comfort,
For sure.
and the ways that your routine reflects,
Yeah.
your unique personality and your
Ah.
background. Because ultimately,
Yes.
understanding our daily routines
Right.
is about understanding ourselves,
Yes.
our priorities,
Yeah.
our values,
Yeah.
our place in the world.
So well said.
It's recognizing those patterns
Right.
that shape our lives
Yeah.
and appreciating those small moments.
Yeah. That just make each day special.
I love that.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
we want to encourage you to keep exploring,
Yes.
keep learning,
For sure.
and keep embracing the beauty of language.
It's a beautiful thing.
And remember,
Yes.
whether you're, a seasoned language enthusiast or just starting out,
Yeah.
there's always something new to discover
Always.
in those everyday words that shape our lives. Thanks for joining us
Yes, thank you.
on this linguistic adventure,
It's been fun.
and we'll see you next time.